Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku had an adaptation quirk. The ability to adapt, to survive. This has always been the driving force behind all human evolution. Izuku's quirk though. It takes that one step further, ensuing that whatever fails to kill him, will just make him stronger, a force to bring doom against the villains who dare to stand in his way. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel, after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Alright class. Izuku will let out one of his trademark sighs, feeling as perpetually exhausted as always. You've done well enough so far this week, but today's heroics period is going to be a little different. And he thanked whatever deity existed that it was Friday, and he could have a break from these kids for a bit. Monday you went through my test, Tuesday through Thursday, your heroics periods were based on hero law and other more theoretical fields. But today, you'll be doing something practical. Going over to a chalkboard, he flipped it around to show bombastic words declaring today would be a battle trial. The board something present Mick was making him do thanks to a lost bet. The battle trials. Mineta exclaimed in wide-eyed shock already. Sending the cowardly boy a glare, Izuku silenced the perverted student's blubbering. It was only the fact that the boy did his little stunt trying to make a peephole before Izuku's ultimatum that he hadn't sent him packing already. Although the tension between Mineta and Iida on one side and the trio of Midoriya, Ashido, and Kirishima on the other was drawing attention in the class. It had been more than a bit of a surprise for the seemingly friendly duo of Kirishima and Ashido to tear into Iida before class on Tuesday, about jumping to conclusions and defending a peeping Tom. Yes, battle trials. Class 1B did theirs this morning. Izuku would glance for any signs in his students' eyes that they had picked up the stupid Class 8B rivalry that Khan had mentioned several of his own had taken to heart. Makes sense, only so many teachers and we have all our non-heroics courses in the morning. Midoriya muttered to Ashido and Kirishima, the trio having moved their desks together. The request only approved so long as they kept up their work and didn't misbehave during class. Enough, head to training field Gamma. I want you there within 15 minutes. Izuku ordered before more talking or theorizing could take place. Your other instructor, and I will explain more there. But first, these came in for you. A button press and 20 suitcases slid out of the wall, each with a number corresponding to deck placement. The first iterations of your hero suits have arrived. Keep in mind that you're supposed to figure out what about these works and what doesn't during your time here. Take any requests or questions you have about them or alterations to the support department. With that, he walked to the observation room for Field Gamma, his tablet showing the tracking beacons placed into Class 1A's hero suits, a stipulation he'd insisted on for any student he taught. Both to help keep track of them in dangerous situations, and to make sure no young idiots took them off campus to show off. Hello Izuku. The tired voice of the symbol of peace's real form greeted him as he entered the room, the man's costume hanging off a gaunt skeletal frame coffee. Taking the offered cup, he nodded to the man, not the fondest of All Might's enjoyment of grandstanding for the cameras, but at least accepting that the man was determined to learn how to teach. They should be here within 15 minutes. Izuku told him, keeping an eye on the tablet in case any of the students were especially quick, although some might be here in 10. I'll be ready. All Might nodded, double-checking the assistant robots that UA had provided them to place the students where they were meant to go. Soon enough, the 20 aspiring heroes were in the observation room awaiting instruction. Some of them had practical costumes, such as Kaminari and Aoyama, to take full advantage of their quirks. Some had costumes which needed serious revisions, such as Higakure and Yaerozu, so they could use their quirks without inciting a headache-inducing PR nightmare. Some were just for visual aesthetic and could be added to, such as Ashido and Kirishima. Then there was Mineta, who looked like he was wearing a diaper, and Midoriya, who was just wearing a pair of ragged-looking pants. Given the boy's annoyed expression, he guessed that there might have been another portion for his top that got misplaced when he submitted the rest, although the annoyance seemed to be warring with being flustered, as several of the boy's female classmates kept sending him glances, while the boy's friends teased him in their own way. Alright class, listen up. Izuku's sharp voice cut off any muttering or relaxed atmosphere as they all stood at attention. Today, we'll be doing group battle trials. There will be 8 teams. 4 of them will be teams of 2, and 4 will be teams of 3. The teams of 2 will be villains for each of the 4 matches, getting extra time to plan in advance. The teams of 3 won't know who their opponents or allies are, or even what their particular trial is, until the signal to begins. They will be the heroes. Sir, this seems most strange and unfair. Ida broke the silence, chopping the air energetically upon hearing the description of the exercise. Not really, Midoriya spoke up before he could. It actually fits what happens in the real world. Villains always have initiative in this business since, as heroes, we can only respond after someone has done a crime, whether that be in the immediate or tracking someone known to have committed crimes. Added to that, villains are limited in their teams as they often backstab each other, so most stick with small groups they know they can trust. Heroes though, they often work with people they don't know out of necessity, trusting them just because they're fellow heroes. Added to that, an emergency can typically send out as many heroes as are available if they're needed, so it fits. Did I miss anything, Mr. Aizawa? No, that was well put, Midoriya. He nodded to the analytical boy, making a silent reminder to find a good analyst or tactician, to help him cultivate that skill further. There are 20 robots here. They are each numbered with the same number on your hero costume's case, and will guide you to your waiting area. If you're a villain, then they'll take you to a building where your partner will also be, as well as a description of what your trial scenario is. Heroes, once you're in your waiting area, the doors will close and won't open till it's time for you to begin. Once that happens, you'll have 5 minutes to meet up with your teammates and find the building where the villains are. Once those 5 are up or one of you enters the building, then a counter for 10 minutes will start ticking down. If that time runs out and you haven't gotten your trial's win parameter completed, then the villains win. Apart from that, each of you will have a roll of capture tape, which can be used to eliminate one of your opponents and remove them from the trial. Once one group has finished theirs, we will move on to the next, the pattern continuing until everyone has gone, at which point we'll return to the classroom to watch the recordings and evaluate everyone's performance. Now, follow your robots and impress me. As soon as the students were gone, All Might shrunk back down into his skeletal form. Well, this should be interesting. All Might grunted as they looked at the screen which showed the randomizer the robots were running, as they took the students through various paths, to not let anyone know who went where. Think it will be a problem? I hope not. Aizawa groaned, seeing the first round had the Midoriya and Shoji as villains against Mineta, Iida, and Kaminari. Guarding a bomb. His partner, Shoji, mused aloud as they explored the space they were led to, a 5-story concrete building which had a decent view of the training field around them. I must admit I find myself surprised at the cliché. It is only day 1. Izuku shrugged, not expecting the first combat test to be all that difficult. We should plan though. What all can your Quirk do besides the extra arms? I can make various appendages at the ends of my tentacles. Shoji felt him in, whether they be hands, eyes, mouths, ears, or more tentacles which themselves can have an appendage. It was of great use during the entrance exam, allowing me to pick out and find groups of robots to destroy. You could pick things out that clearly. Izuku's eyes narrowed as an idea started coming to him. I think I know how we can win this thing easily. When the heroes get let out, think you can identify the closest one to us. I have a plan. Izuku's grin was feral, eyes shining as his plan formed within his mind's eye. Man, where is our third person? Mineta lisped out, eyes flitting about fearfully as they made their way closer and closer to the tall building they were told to go to upon the announcement to begin. I do not know. Iida frowned, looking around as he got used to the weight of his armor, although it was admittedly not as heavy as it could be given the armor was more for visual appearances than anything else. When they got the signal to begin, all they'd been told was there was a bomb in the building they just had to find and touch within the 10-minute time frame. They weren't even told who their teammates were or the identity of the villains, Aizawa pointing out how not all dispatches had perfectly detailed information. I hope it's Ierosu. Mineta let out a small chuckle. I'm sure she'd be a great asset. Before he could reprimand the boy for his obviously inappropriate implication, the sound of footsteps drew his attention, as he saw the shirtless and shoeless Midoriya running to catch up. Sorry, I was a bit further away than expected. Midoriya apologized as they caught up. What? Dang it, I wanted one of the girls. Mineta grumbled as Midoriya sent the boy a glare that made the grape-themed boy whimper and hide behind Iida. Midoriya, do not bully your classmates. He reprimanded as Midoriya rolled his eyes with a scoff. Whatever, we have a plan. Izuku glanced towards the building that was their destination, seemingly trying to make some sort of strategy already. I was going to use my speed to start searching the floors from the bottom up, rushing the bomb once we have it. Mineta is to scale to the top of the building and work down. Iida started going over there, or more accurately his earlier plan. I suppose you could act as a distraction. That is a good plan. Midoriya nodded, before offering a polite hand, simple yet effective. Out of reflex more than anything, Iida reached out to take his partner's hand only to gasp, as the greenie quickly used that to wrap capture tape around his wrist, but mine's better. What the hell? Mineta gaped only to scream when Midoriya charged picked their diminutive classmate up, so he couldn't escape the capture tape. Heroes are captured, villain team wins. Aizawa's voice rang out throughout the field as Iida gaped, his mind finally catching back up. But you were one of the heroes. Iida yelled in shock. No, Shoji and I were villains, so we used his quirk to figure out who was closest. I went and took out Kaminari same way I did you two and took his place. Izuku shrugged, a villain is supposed to use dirty tactics and tricks to win anyway. First team, please return to the changing room and take off your costumes. Then return to the classroom and wait for the rest of us. Aizawa's orders carried through again as Izuku instantly went to go do so, leaving Iida to fume. Sitting back in his chair, Izuku stretched, the case with his hero costume next to the desk. Did you have to change back before I could get here? Mina pouted at him as she and Kirishima sat beside him, their group having gone second. I want my eye candy. You have Kirishima's abs. Izuku snorted, tossing a balled up wad of paper at Mina, as it bounced off the Pinkette's forehead. Blah. Mina made a face curious like my brother. You. Not going there, so it is your duty, oh fluffy buddy, to provide me eye candy to sustain your alien queen. Think she'll do this to Tetsu as well? Izuku asked Kirishima, studiously ignoring their bombastic female friend. Probably. The shirtless Ridi chuckled, but that might be because she's been hyped all week to meet Tetsu and Yanagi. Didn't they say they were bringing Tetsu's old friend to the karaoke bar too? Izuku frowned as he remembered talking to their friends from 1B in the gym the day before. Yeah. Kirishima nods as Mina finally stops pouting. That'll be fu. Before Kirishima could finish, the door opened to reveal Mr. Aizawa, and the last group, All Might, following behind. Alright everyone, here's how this is going to work. Their tired homeroom teacher sent the last team to their seats before gesturing to the board. We'll watch the footage for each fight. Nobody is to talk during those viewings, nobody. Aizawa's red-eyed glare made it clear this wasn't something to test him on afterwards. I'll allow any initial questions before I have each side explain the reasoning for their actions. I'll give my own breakdown along with All Might, and then we'll open up for any critiques from you all. That said, here's the footage from the first team. The video didn't take long at all. It showed Izuku and Shoji making their plan, the three heroes leaving their bunker starting points, Izuku taking out Kaminari, Iida meeting up with Mineta, before Izuku took them out as well. Given the time between the other teams arriving, he was positive that first round had gone the fastest. And there we go. All Might let out a big belly laugh. Now students, any questions or comments before we hear from the teams? Sir? Iida shot to his feet, one hand raised high, and the other chopping mechanically at the air. I feel Midoriya and his partner should be punished for violating both the rules and the spirit of the exercise. Interesting. Aizawa sighed. Midoriya, anything to say in your defense? Simple, what I did never went against any rule we were given. Izuku felt his eyebrow twitch irritably at Iida harping on him again, his friends at his side helping him keep his cool, added to that it plays into what I mentioned earlier. Heroes trusting people just because they're wearing a cape, trust like that could be easily taken advantage of. Could you elaborate on that, young Midoriya? All Might frowned. The Paragon hero probably not used to people saying trust in heroes was a bad thing, except for anarchists and villains at any rate. There are hundreds of heroes in Japan alone. Izuku shrugged, and at least a chunk of all villains were heroes or sidekicks at one point. It makes sense if a hero or sidekick is planning to turn villain, then they plan their reveal. But even not counting that, there's room for people claiming to be a hero when they really aren't, as there's no way to know every hero in Japan without a memory quirk, let alone if someone claiming to be an international hero arrives. Then there are people with illusion, shape-shifting, perception-altering, and mind-control quirks. Like the Golden Sun incident Mr. Aizawa dealt with a few years ago. The what? Kaminari frowned in confusion, the lighting quirk user having at least taken his loss better than the rest of that hero team had. A major villain event in Germany a few years ago. Aizawa eyed him, likely surprised that Izuku had even heard of it. A villain was planning his reveal and setting up things for a while. His quirk was a mind-controlling one, allowing him to infect a person with his quirk, and have them go about their lives until the trigger went off, and they obeyed him mindlessly. This villain spent months building a cult in secret and infecting as many heroes as he could in the area he was based in. When he made his move and heroes started coming in to stop him, those not infected weren't prepared for their fellows to attack them from behind. I got called in due to my ability to nullify quirks. I'm surprised you know about that, Midoriya. I'm a quirk nerd, sir. Studying them, breaking them down, learning how to improve or counter them. It's something I've been doing for as long as I could understand what a quirk was. Izuku nodded to him as the class muttered about the explanation and the scenario given, but I knew that people trusted like that, so it felt like a good idea. Not to mention I knew that with my quirk, I had a decent chance of escaping should the ruse fail, Shoji staying by the bomb as a precaution. When Shoji figured out who our opponents were, it felt more assured as I knew Mineta would latch onto Iida for a plan, and Iida would go by the book. I see. Aizawa nodded, and you're right, that is a problem that I hope we can get out of everyone's system well in UA. Hope for the best but prepare for the worst, all of you. Aizawa's gaze went around, although seemed to linger in Izuku and the back in his seat Iida, and just a heads up, that particular trick won't be allowed in future exercises, as this is meant to be learning how to handle various scenarios. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Izuku sat down as the next video started, Iida and his teammates having nothing else to add, and the class having very little to break down. The second fight was Mina and Kirishima as villains against Sato, Higakure, and Aoyama, where his friends had taken full advantage of their allotted time, utilizing Mina's acid to destroy any stairs for the heroes to climb, while Kirishima used his quirk to break apart rubble for projectiles. In the end, those weren't needed as none of the hero team had a method to get from one floor to the next without the stairs, their one attempt to hoist one person up being met with hail of thrown rocks from Kirishima. Alright then. Heroes, what was your plan going in? We planned to stick together. Sato sighed, we figured Aoyama and I could draw tension and hold the villains in a fight, while Higakure used the mayhem to get to the bomb. We didn't think they would, or could, destroy a way for us to follow. I see, and villains. All Might turned to a grinning Mina and Kirishima. We have Izuku to thank. Kirishima slapped his back hard, I never would have thought to use my quirk to make projectiles before. Plus, I could grip the rough edges safely thanks to it. We even planned to have me jump down and fight if necessary, knowing I could get back up thanks to how sharp my fingers get when hardened, they can act as climbing gear. And I never would have thought to use my acid to set traps or destroy ways to be followed. Mina admits, I only ever thought to toss it around me or slide on it. Izuku even thought of some awesome ideas for support gear to use my acid more effectively, aim it, or even store it. At the stunned looks from his classmates, Izuku just shrugged. Like I said, I'm a quirk nerd. Analysis is a skill I've spent years working on. Any suggestions for either group? Aizawa looks around as Izuku raises his hand after most of his classmates frown, unable to think of any ideas. Other things Mina and Kirishima could have done would involve using acid to destroy part of the floor around the bomb, to make it harder to get to, if the enemy team got up the floors, or even get it onto the roof. Another idea would be to find a level of acid that would hurt skin, but not Kirishima's hardened form, have Kirishima go to the ground floor and fight, while Mina dripped acid through melted holes in the floor, to provide support and sow chaos amongst the heroes. For the heroes, I saw Sato boosting his strength yesterday, and Aoyama managed to get propelled with his laser, which we saw is strong. They could have had Sato throw the others up, or Aoyama use his core to propel himself up, or even destroy part of the roof to have another entrance that wasn't being watched. Izuku's eyes flit about, fingers rapidly tapping his thumb as he ran through scenarios in his head, tuning out most of what was around him. You also gave few restrictions, so one option would be to have the heroes go into the building next to the one with the bomb, and jump from one roof to the next, or through a window that they could have broken first. Yes. All Might coughed, bringing Izuku out of his hyper-focused state. Thank you, Midoriya. Looking around, Izuku saw the wide-eyed gaping expressions of his classmates at his rapid flow of information. Only his friends, who'd already seen it, and Todoroki, who didn't seem to care, weren't at least looking wide-eyed. Well, he assumed Higakure was doing the same given how her uniform was positioned for body language. The third team had been Jiro and Tokoyami as the villains against Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Kendo as the heroes. Todoroki had frozen the building, entering without waiting for the other heroes to even arrive, resulting in the girls having to run in and help him, Todoroki having been caught off guard when Dark Shadow could still attack him, and Jiro was able to use her vibrations to break the ice around her feet and attack. The heroes still won, but it was a very close thing. The main issue that had been brought up, Izuku not even needing to do so, was that Todoroki failed badly when it came to teamwork. A statement that the ice user didn't seem very satisfied with. The final round, Ojiro and Kota as villains against Sero, Asui, and Uraraka as heroes, had been an interesting one to watch, given how much mobility the hero team had, while the villains were primarily strength-based, given Ojiro just had his tail and no support gear, while Kota's Quirk needed animals on hand to work. The two villains, with what they had on hand, couldn't keep up with the superior numbers and mobility. Izuku's only advice, which others shared, was for Ojiro to get some support gear, and Kota to maybe look into permits for animal sidekicks. The hero team hadn't had enough opposition to really critique this time around. And that's it for the day. Azawanada, I'll have your grades from today ready by Monday. Speaking of, be ready as Monday's class will have quirkless sparring for your hero period. I want all of you able to function even without a quirk on hand. Dismissed. Sweet. Mina jumped to her feet, linking her arms with his and Kirishima's. Come on boys, we got things to do. This the place, right? Mina asked, bouncing around as the trio entered the karaoke bar that Tetsu told them to come to, the place apparently a favored old haunt of the steel quirk user, and his childhood friend Takage. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Kirishima pulled out the slip of paper with the address to check it again. Yo bros. Over here. The ever-energetic voice of Kirishima's long-lost twin, a fact that nobody could convince Izuku wasn't true, shouted from a back booth, waving them over. Hey Tetsu, hey Yanagi. Izuku smiled, waving to his gym buddies, nodding to the greenite who was with them. Said greenite mock gasped upon seeing them, you guys didn't tell me your new friend was a greenie. You trying to replace me Tetsu? Been trying to for years. Tetsu smirked at his friend, but like a boomerang, you always seem to find me again and slap me upside the head. Ryako giggled in amusement at that, which had the unfortunate side effect of bringing Takage's attention onto her as Izuku, Kirishima, and Mina slid into the corner booth. Hey, don't think you're off the hook either Yanagi. Takage smirked, poking the ghost girl in the chest, not telling me that your new friends are a couple of hunky guys. She paused to pointedly eye him and Kirishima up, I must saw, row. So, what's the deal Yanagi? Why leave a girl hanging? Or were you hoping to keep these two all for yourself? Any further teasing remarks were cut off by a dango bun shooting off a skewer on their table and stuffing itself into Takage's mouth, gagging her. Oh lord, it's another Mina. Kirishima paled, Midori bro run. There are two of them. Hey. Mina pouted not nice. Smacking Kirishima, and for good measure Izuku, on the head with a menu she proceeded to focus on Takage who was busy chewing the dango gag, and we'll be having words later, talk shop on making our boys squirm and all that. There really are two of them. Tetsu paled, this was a terrible idea. Regardless of the intended result of a first meeting between the rest of this circle of individuals, the outcome that has come to pass should have truly been foreseen by you both at the very least. With the similarities shown with such clarity between the two hardened heroes, then one would expect their old friends to mayhap share similar similarities, continue the pattern of yin to yang. One can blame not the universe, but only yourselves for not listening to and asking the other of who was to be brought, so plans and preparations could be first made, and not allow them the upper hand which they have so swiftly claimed from you. Yanagi declared in all seriousness even as she opened a bottle of soda, taking a refined sip. Huh? The other four gaped, Kirishima and Tetsu looking to Izuku to translate. You're both idiots who should have figured if you were so similar your best friends might be alike. Izuku translated with a roll of his eyes, and even if you didn't want to rely on thinking ahead, you could have asked what Mina and Takage were like to plan, so they wouldn't take control of the situation. Now they have, so you're both screwed. Hey. Kirishima and Tetsu pout, sulking as Mina and Takage cackle happily. Just them though fluffy buddy. Mina rested her chin on her hands as she leaned over at him, smirking dangerously, even as Takage copied her position. You trying to say you're not screwed as well? Unlike those two, I'm not that easy. Izuku said, managing to keep a perfect deadpan even as Kirishima choked on his drink, and Tetsu froze gaping. Midori bro. Kirishima whined, looking utterly betrayed. I thought you were supposed to be the nice one. But I am being nice. Izuku smiled innocently, sipping his drink as he sent a subtle wink to Mina and Yanagi. Isn't telling the truth a nice and polite thing to do? Smiling in amusement, Yanagi added to the duo's misfortune by setting her phone on the table, a meme proudly displayed declaring stop. Stop. They're already dead. You too Yanagi. Tetsu crossed his arms with a huff. What is this, pick on hardening quirk user day? Yes. The four without hardening quirks all nodded in agreement. It's been declared to happen on any day ending in Y. Mina smiled innocently. Wait, but doesn't every... Hey. Kirishima shoved his pseudo-sister with one hand as the pin cat gave into her giggles, the table falling into happy laughter. So, you guys come here often, right? Izuku decided to be merciful and changed the subject, Tetsu instantly latching onto the salvation. Yeah, we've been coming here since we were kids. The Iron Man of 1B grinned. They have different hours for younger kids to come in with their parents, but this place is a ton of fun. One of the rules of the place is that if a group comes, they can't leave till at least one person has sung. I figured if we make this a regular thing, we could all rotate who goes when. Not it. Izuku and Yanagi speak up instantly, Izuku planning to go as close to last as he could. Not it. Mina and Takage pipe up, Kirishima following a moment later before Tetsu could. Oh, come on guys, really? Tetsu gave them all a look. This was your idea, only fits that you go first. Kirishima grinned happily. I move that Kirishima go next. Izuku smiled. Seconded. Mina declared. Motion carried. Takage nodded with a mock serious expression. We thank you for your sacrifice, Kirishima. Yanagi bowed her head to him. I hate you all. Kirishima joined Tetsu in sulking. So, how was your heroics class? Izuku asked the 1B group as he finally decided what he wanted to order, more people trickling into the karaoke bar, which would open the mix soon. Pretty fun. Takage nodded. Our exercise was 2 villains against 3 heroes to capture a bomb. I got lucky and ended up on a team with Tetsu as the villains. Our hero opponents were these 3 idiots called Kamakiri, Monoma, and Bakugo. Izuku tried to hide his flinch at the name, although he was sure everyone but Takage caught it. Those 3 were more focused at trying to one-up each other than actually stop us. We actually won by wearing down the clock and letting them fight each other. I doubt your teacher was amused. Mina shivered, probably picturing how Aizawa would have treated that display. Yeah, Vlad-sensei wasn't very happy. Takage shrugged before smirking, not like they'd have stood a chance against my quirk anyway. What is your quirk, Takage? Izuku leaned forward, his quirk nerd shining as he saw Ryuko and Yanagi grin, likely eager to see someone else get dumbfounded, now that they knew what to expect. It's called Lizard Tail Splitter. Takage told him, smiling proudly as she described her quirk. I can split my body into multiple pieces, my limit is 50 for now at least. But more than that, each piece can levitate and more freely through the air. They'll even regenerate if they're destroyed, but that's exhausting, so I prefer just joining them back. Holy fuck. Izuku whispered wide-eyed at the quirk as his mind started racing. You can fucking fly. What? No. Takage frowned confused. My pieces can levitate and move, yeah, but I can't just fly. Why not? Izuku demanded, staring her dead in the eye. If you can make your pieces float and fly, then why not do it by itself? It's the same body parts, just one piece. And if you need to separate then split off a single hair or something, it's still technically a body part, and then there will be 2 parts, so the rest of you can fly. The thoughts and plans came rushing out, Izuku unable to stop them, plus with a bit of gear and training, you'd be a monster of a combatant. Some clawed gloves over your fingers, and you could separate them into small flying knives and spears. Work out to improve your strength and your arms could go and attack someone or lift something else while you handle a different issue. With training you could focus on a kicking-based fighting style, while your arms were spearade and holding weapons to also attack your enemies, so they'd have to essentially fight 3 enemies at once. Grappling tactics would be good to learn too if you use your separated limbs like restraints. Nobody was stopping him as he studied. You might even be able to work on improving your regeneration through training or better understanding of your own anatomy. Making it so the regeneration isn't as draining, goes faster, or maybe even works if you haven't separated like you can work on for flight. Whoa. 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 Takage waved her hands frantically, eyes somewhat unfocused after the rush of information that's a lot. Frowning, he saw one of her hairs split away from the rest of her and float in midair, before the rest of her body floated an inch or so into the air. Admittedly, it was only for a moment before she dropped back down, possibly not used to floating that much weight, but it proved his theory was sound. Told you he was smart. Tetsu grinned, sharing a hardened fist bump with Kirishima. Smart. Takage gestured to him wildly. That's like calling Godzilla a big lizard, no sense of scale. How the hell did you break down my quirk that fast? I hadn't even thought of most of that. He's a quirk nerd. Kirishima declared as he and Mina threw their arms around him, best one around. And he's all ours. Mina agreed, although he needs a girlfriend so I might be willing to share with you or Yanagi. Mina. Izuku turned scarlet, feeling his face heat up as Mina and Takage laughed. Now I feel left out. Tetsu snorted only to gulp when Mina zeroed in on him. Oh now, we can't have that, can we? Mina gave the Iron Quirk user a dangerous grin as she drug a finger under his chin. You gotta go sing, bye. Tetsu bolted to the stage, Mina and Takage laughing at the sudden departure, while Izuku had a feeling this sort of chaotic energy was something he'd have to get used to. Striding into the 1B classroom, Sekijiro Kansas looked at his class, all 20 in their seats, even if many were chatting with those nearby. Nothing all that unusual, unless you counted the small tub of sand that Yanagi was using her quirk on, a look of serious concentration on the telekinetic's face. Class 1B. He called, his voice drawing everyone's attention sharply to the front of the room, some of the more distracted students jumping startled, having not noticed his arrival. I hope you're refreshed from your weekend and ready to work. Yes, sensei. Most of the class answered as one. Bakugo just huffed irritably as Kansas tried not to openly scowl. The explosive boy was insufferable as a student. He refused to listen, felt he was already the best at everything, and then there was how he fought. Kansas noticed during the battle trial that Bakugo either didn't seem to care about holding back to avoid hurting his classmates too much, perhaps knowing that Recovery Girl could patch them up, or he didn't seem to understand just how volatile and damaging his explosions could be. He wasn't sure which was worse in all honesty. Excellent. Kansas nodded. Please now, for most of you, today's homeroom will be a free period to work on any assignments or personal projects you might have. Most of us, sir. Jirota Shishida asked with a hand raised in the air, the bestial student's face twisted in confusion. Yes, most of you. Kansas nodded. Today is the day the various first-year classes get their class representatives and vice representatives. He paused to give that a moment to sink in. Unfortunately, that just allowed various students to start shouting. Clearly I am the perfect fit for such a position. Monoma cackled, his eyes bugging out as he shouted, those around him wincing in irritation at the volume. Fuck off, copy-paste. If anyone's gonna be in charge of this shit show, it's gonna be me. Bakugo shouted, letting off small but loud explosions from his palms. I'd be a way better pick than you. Kamakiri got riled up at that, the young blade quirk user having focused on Bakugo as a personal rival. Those three troublemakers weren't the only ones shouting, others were lobbying for the position as well, or outcrying the chances of others. Enough. Kansas roared, slamming his fist onto his desk with a loud bang, as his students, even Bakugo, quieted down. I've already decided who will fill the two positions. He was going to allow an election initially, but with certain volatile students he didn't want to risk it, or give them more reason to get angry at their classmates. Juzo Hananuki, Jirota Shishida, please stand up. He ordered as the two white-eyed boys did so. Monoma seemed to accept this, the copy quirk user thankfully having a lot of respect for. Most of his classmates, while Kamakiri just seemed satisfied that his rival wasn't chosen over him. Bakugo though. What? Bakugo snarled, hands smoking as small explosions popped from the skin. What the fuck do you mean those extras are in charge? I'm not taking any orders from those side characters. Bakugo, that's enough. Kansas narrowed his eyes, moving some of his blood to encase and harden around the boy's hands to prevent more explosions. You'll be staying after school every day for detention after that remark. Keep letting off your quirk like that, and it'll be bumped up to a week. Am I clear? Bakugo grit his teeth, throwing himself down into his seat with a huff. Bakugo, I asked you a question. Kansas glared at the aggressive student, letting out some of the aura that had intimidated countless villains. Clear. Yeah. Bakugo grunted, still pissed, but with the wind taken out of his sails. Nodding, Kansas directed the blood he'd used into a disposal vat off to the side. He didn't want any nitroglycerin from the boy's sweat getting into his body's bloodstream, so that blood was not unusable. Good. Hananuki, you're the class representative. Along with being one of our 2 recommendation students, you've shown a level head and put forward good initiative working with your classmates over that first week of school. Shishida, you've shown yourself to be very logical, organized, and disciplined, as along with a similar attitude towards teamwork that Hananuki has shown. To both of you, and the rest of this class, keep in mind that these positions aren't guaranteed to be permanent. Should you show yourself unfit for the role, I can and will replace you. Whether that be when you move on to your second year or partway through the term. Now, I want you both to come with me. We have a meeting with the other class reps to discuss your duties. The rest of you, as I said, have a free period for homeroom. And if I find out anyone misbehaved while I was gone, then they're going to regret it. Sighing, Shota walked into his classroom where his students all divided into their various cliques or doing whatever they felt like whilst alone. Morning. He sighed, not bothering to hide his exhaustion from his students. I hope you lot got more sleep than I did over the weekend. Trying to balance keeping up with the day job of being a teacher and the night job of being an active underground hero. He still wasn't sure why he was determined to keep up both full-time. But even if you didn't, we don't have time for you to nap. Today we have a very important task that needs to be taken care of. He let it sit like that for a moment, enjoying his students' panicked confusion as they stood in suspense. You'll be selecting a class representative and vice representative. Some of them looked ready to fall out of their seats at the sudden revelation, probably expecting a do-or-die test. How will they be decided, sir? Iida had his hand shot high into the air as he asked his question. You all can vote on it. Doing so would put the final choice in their hands, and let him gauge who the class looked up to. I would like to nominate myself for such a position. Iida began robotically bowing to the class, while others shouted about how much they wanted the spot. What about you, Midoribro? He heard Kirishima ask the greeneat in the back, you gonna put your name in? No, I'm one of the 3 people in the class I think shouldn't be rep. He heard Midoriya deny. Midoriya, explain that. Shota demanded, wanting to know why the boy thought he wouldn't be class rep, and who else shouldn't be, still trying to get a solid grasp on the problem child's mindset. The class rep is supposed to be a good example for those looking at our class, as well as someone those in the class can approach with problems. Midoriya grimaced, think of how All Might is supposed to be for most of the pro heroes out there. I don't do well with other people I don't know, and I already saw how a lot of the people in this class were put off by me in the battle trial and Quirk apprehension tests. Shota noted several people wince uncomfortably at being called out at that, while Iida just seemed surprised at Midoriya's introspective comments. No, I'd be a bad fit. But you said there were 2 others. Mina tilted her head as Midoriya deadpanned and pointed at Mineta. You all heard the little pervert comment about wanting to instill a regime to dictate what the girls in the class were wearing, so he'd have his fetishes sated. Midoriya's opinion on the purple boy shone through once again, although by now Iida was at least fully grasping Mineta's personality. Granted that meant it was more he disapproved of both Mineta and Midoriya, but it was a start and would hopefully lead to fewer confrontations. And the final one is me, I suppose. Iida huffed while rolling his eyes. Yes, actually. You're quick to assume, don't seem to listen, inflexible, and are way too intense to be approachable. Midoriya listed without batting an eye as Shota sighed, his hopes for fewer confrontations dashed for now. Enough. He shut this down before it could escalate. Here's how this is going to work. Everyone is going to nominate someone other than themselves who they think would make a good class representative. Also, yes, someone can get multiple nominations, so pick who you think is the best choice. Those who get nominated have a chance to then step down, if they don't wish to fill the position, as it does entail extra work. That took the wind out of the sails of some of them, and then we'll have a vote with those that remain, with first place being the rep and second place being vice. We'll go down each row. Yaozu, you're first. The nominations went quick thankfully, although there were a few surprises, such as Uraraka still nominating Midoriya, after he stated he didn't think he'd fit the role, and exasperation such as Mineta voting for Kaminari, and then getting upset that Kaminari nominated Jiro, shouting at the blonde for wasting their chance to instill the regime together. In the end, 9 students had nominations. Midoriya, Kaminari, Kirishima, Shoji, and Jiro all had 1 vote each. Ashido had 2, Asui had 3, while Yaozu and Kendo each had 5. Alright, does anyone wish to drop out? Aizawa sighed, rummaging in his sleeping bag for another juice pack. I will, sensei, I already made my reasoning clear. Midoriya stepped forward with a polite bow while his nominator, Uraraka, pouted with puffed out cheeks. Same here. Kaminari, to his surprise, stepped forward, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. I'm going to have enough trouble keeping my grades up as is without extra work. Not my jam. Jiro shook her head even as Kaminari pouted at her, the 3 sitting down as did Shoji and Kirishima, who didn't give their own reasoning. That leaves Yaozu, Kendo, Asui, and Ashido. Shota wrote the names on the board. Let's get this done quick as we have a meeting to get to once the reps are elected. Cast your votes, and once again, you can't vote for yourself if you're a nominee. The votes were done quickly, everyone who nominated one of the remaining 4 sticking with those votes, while the rest seemed to be with going what their friends voted for. Ashido went from 2 nominations to 4 votes by Midoriya, voting for his other friend, and Uraraka, going with what her failed nomination wanted. Kaminari likely just trusted Jiro's judgment and voted for Yaoyorozu like she did. Mineta, he was positive, only voted for Yaoyorozu in the hopes of getting an inroad to a date later. Sero, thankfully, just seemed to respect Kendo. Excellent. Yaoyorozu, you class rep, and Kendo, your vice rep. We have a meeting to get to, the rest of you study till we get back. Man, that vote was something. Kirishima grunted as they walked around the cafeteria, looking for their Class 1B friends, Uraraka having joined them today. I know, right? The Gravity Quirk user smiled, rather friendly, even if only at lunch with them on occasion. I still think you'd have made a great rep, Midoriya. Not really. Izuku rubbed the back of his head awkwardly as they finally found Takage, Tetsu, and Yanagi's table, the rest of 1B, nowhere to be seen, which, thankfully, meant no Bakugo. Sup? Takage grinned, flashing them a peace sign as they sat down. You all get your class reps today too. Who does Izawa pick? Pick. Mina blinked confused. We had an election. I almost won. The pinket sulked, cheeks puffed out grumpily. Midori bro got nominated by Uraraka, but stepped down. Kirishima outed him as Izuku gave him a look. And you stepped down when I nominated you. Izuku shot back, breaking apart his chopsticks to eat. But anyway, it's Momo Yaoyorozu and Itsuka Kendo who got chosen. What about for your class? Vlad-sensei picked our reps for us. Tetsu. Indeed. If I were to hazard a guess and asked to share my beliefs, I would propose that our instructor chose to select our governing representatives himself over an election, for the sole reason of avoiding individuals of certain volatile natures from having a chance to partake in the power which could prove further corrupting. Given the shouting and arguing that were done before he announced he had made a decision, and the punishments that followed, I feel my hypothesis is not an unlikely one. In the end, it was the student recommended by the pro-hero Snatch, Juzo Hananuki, who was elevated to the lofty position as the student representative of Class 1B. His aide, our vice representative, is one Jiroda Shishida. They are both caring and hard-working students who I believe will throw themselves passionately and diligently into fulfilling the added roles that have undertaken. Ugh. Uraraka's eyes were swimming, the gravity girl having not been on the receiving end of one of Yanagi's sentences. She thinks their homeroom teacher decided to avoid certain students getting the job by picking himself, and that there were fights and punishments given out that support her theory. Hananuki and Shishida got the jobs, and she thinks they'll do a good job. Izuku translated easily, offering everyone at the table a tub filled with his mom's homemade cookies to share, the group happily digging in. These are so good. Takage moaned, mouth full of chocolate chip. I have to meet Mama Midoriya at some point. I have to. I too would like to meet the woman who raised you. Yanagi spoke, using a short sentence for once as she nibbled her cookie, a notebook next to her, as she practiced writing her name using her quirk to control the pencil. Well, she's been wanting to meet all of you as well. Izuku admitted with a grin, still over the moon at finally having real friends, although his mother had been far more excited. How about the suggestion he was about to offer was cut off as a loud blaring alarm went off, sending evacuating students into a panic. What's going on? Uraraka shouted, eyes wide. It's an intruder alarm. A panicking third year shouted as he ran past. Fuck, let's get going. Takage narrowed her eyes, taking charge of the situation as they moved to the evacuation route, finding the hull packed with panicking people refusing to move orderly, more streaming in from behind, only further adding to the chaos. A hard shove from behind pinned Izuku against the window as he saw the intruders with the press all on the front line being confronted by teachers. It's the press. He groaned out, his voice only reaching his friends. I got it. Takage grinned, her body separating into several pieces and flying overhead, smacking several students to get their attention. Yo. Panicking sheeple. It's just a friggin' press. Stop acting like a bunch of babies and file out with some fucking decorum. Chuckling to himself, All for One ended the call from young Tomura, the lad very proud of himself for breaking into UA to get the schedule for the school's upcoming visits to the USJ. That boy is too cocky. His doctor sighed. Are you going to allow him to be the one who makes use of that intel? One of the others might be better. You may be right. All for One thought about the 5 acolytes he had trained, 5 powerful figures each with their own empires and armies at their disposal. None of that mattered at the moment though. However, he is young and needs to grow. How can that happen if he never gets to go try things for himself? Plus, Tomura is not yet ready to learn of the other 4, not yet. Giving his intel to another may be better in the short term, but cause problems in the long term. Tomiura shall have his chance, he shall have a Nomu, and even if he fails, it will send a declaration of war. Alright everybody, file in. Kendo shouted, their class making their way to a bus to head to another facility on campus, most everyone in full hero gear, and if you don't behave correctly, then I'll smack you. Her hands enlarged to emphasize her point. Kendo, don't threaten your classmates unless they warrant it. Aizawa sighed, and I mean that it better be warranted. Yes, sensei. The nervous Orange Tea nodded, helping herd everyone onto the bus, Yorozu trying to tell Iida that a seating plan wasn't really necessary for the trip. Hearing a surprisingly loud batch of laughter, he turned to see a grumbling red-faced Midoriya in his gym clothes sulking, while Kirishima showed a photo to Ashido and Uraraka, the girls leaning on each other as they laughed hysterically. Come on guys. Midoriya groaned, it's not funny. You're right. Ashido cackled. It's hilarious. Uraraka finished, wheezing. Something you wish to share with the class? Aizawa drawled as he approached a boisterous group. Don't you dare. Midoriya glared at Kirishima who was still holding a phone. The support department messed with Midori Bro's hero costume again. Kirishima wheezed. I had a feeling just a pair of pants wasn't the look you'd intended for. Aizawa looked at his green-haired student, the boy oscillating between being irritated and embarrassed. What was it this time? Speedo. Izuku buried his face in his hands, while his friends kept laughing with Plus Ultra written on the back and a comic book POW thing on the front. Damn it, power loader. Aizawa felt his eyebrows twitch. Do you know why your costume keeps having this happen to it? I don't know. The problem child looked close to tearing his hair out. I didn't ask for a difficult costume. I just wanted something that could grow with me when I transform and said I didn't really need any special support gear for it given my quirk. Yeah, that'll do it. Aizawa sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as the four students looked confused. A lot of the support students take a great deal of pride in their work. Anyone saying they don't need support equipment, no matter how warranted or not that statement is, tends to offend them. Some might be trying to alter it to add the support gear regardless, others are just being petty. I'll talk to the head of that department about it. Thank you, sensei. Midoriya nodded, but until then, I'll just use the UA gym clothes if that's alright. I'll make sure the other teachers are aware in case they have to take over one of your heroics courses. Now you four, get on the bus. Yes, sensei. They nodded in unison before scrambling onto the bus to get what seats were left. Seeing them rush off, still laughing and teasing, Aizawa felt memories from his own time at UA start to rise up before he ruthlessly suppressed them. He didn't have time for nostalgia, or the pain that came with it. Leaning back against his seat, Izuku noted the tense and awkward atmosphere in the bus, everyone having noticed he and the others getting on last after speaking to their teacher, most of the class having shown awkward silence around him like this, ever since he pointed out their reactions to him on Monday. Okay, this is getting annoying. Mina groaned before clapping her hands loudly. Alright kiddies, this silence is getting really old, real fast. Since I don't want this to become a mime training course instead of a hero training course, I declare that you lot may ask any 3 questions for myself or my fluffy buddy to answer. Mina. Izuku sent her a look for her offer, but got waved off. Just roll with it bro, Mina is. Mina. Kirishima chuckled with bemused exasperation. I'll go first then, Ribbit. Asui raised a hand. I'm just going to be blunt. Your attitude seems kinda weird, why do you keep changing attitude rapidly? Bipolar asshole. Mineta muttered as Izuku, about to try and stutter out an awkward answer, snapped towards Mineta with a piercing glare. Like that. Asui nodded, satisfied at the example of his attitude. I'm not that good with people. Izuku ignored the eye roll Kirishima and Mina gave at that statement, or Uraraka's confused head tilt. I also tend to have a bad stutter, unless I'm excited or pissed the hell off. Kaminari grimaced, probably remembering one of the times Izuku had gotten irritated while transformed. I spent years bottling everything up, trying to keep my head down so I wouldn't get in trouble. Izuku scowled as he remembered his old school, still unsure of just how thorough the cops he'd spoke to with the power hose couple would be in looking into the Quirk discrimination and bullying there, and once I stopped bottling it all up, You have a short fuse. Aizawa-sensei interrupted, surprising Izuku along with his classmates who thought the man had been napping. It's not uncommon. You likely need to have session with Hound Dog about it, but you wouldn't be the first. Yes, sir. Izuku decided to try and keep an open mind. Aizawa had been better than his old teachers by far, so he'd give this guidance session at least a chance. Alright, question number 2. Higakure was bouncing in her seat, or at least he was pretty sure she was bouncing. It was rather hard to tell when she was only wearing a pair of shoes and gloves and now he was picturing it and getting flustered. Brilliant. I still don't really get what your quirk does besides make you big and gray. My quirk is called Adaptation. Izuku noticed everyone in the class who didn't know listening intently. Basically anything I go through that doesn't kill me, makes that transformed state stronger. If I get burned, then it's more resistance to burns once I heal. I take blunt force damage. It becomes more resistant to that next time. Added to that, both my transformed and untransformed states build up my resistances, although only the transformation can make use of them. I also have a minor healing factor, at least that's how the quirk doctor described it, which helps me heal from whatever I'm having to adapt to. The adaptation only comes into play once I've made that recovery. Whoa. Higakure gaped. That's intense. Kaminari picked up, the electric user sparking slightly, although Izuku wasn't sure whether that was from nerves or being hyped up, so the longer you're in the hero game the more powerful you're gonna get. Like some kind of unstoppable juggernaut. Maybe eventually. Izuku rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, unsure of how to handle his classmates' reactions. I'll take the last question. Kendo spoke up, the orange tea he'd met on day one having spoken to him occasionally, but they hadn't honestly interacted all that much since then. Have you learned an actual fighting style to go with your quirk yet? Midoriya. You will be learning a martial art. Got that? Kendo asked, eyes narrowed while Ojiro nodded beside her. Careful Midoriya, Kaminari snickered, you might just be getting drafted as their personal punching bag. The blonde snickers were cut off by a sharp slap upside the head from Jiro. Children, behave. Aizawa flashed a red-eyed glare as everyone on the bus let out a gulp. We'll be arriving there shortly. This facility we're coming to is designed for disaster rescue training, so it's not a playground. If you misbehave and goof off there's a very real chance of injury, so if I see anyone failing to show the proper restraint here, then there will be consequences. Am I clear? Yes, sensei. Izuku and his classmates all answered as one, the response satisfying their teacher as they rounded a corner and started approaching a massive domed building. Stepping off the bus, Aizawa smirked up at the structure. Problem children. Welcome to the USJ. Must you call your students that, Aizawa? A voice both bemused and exasperated caused Izuku to turn, seeing a woman in a puffy spacesuit exiting the building. Behind him, he could hear Uraraka give a fangirl squeal, gushing to those around her about his 13 was her favorite hero. I'll stop saying it when it stops being true. Aizawa gave an uncaring shrug at that before looking around. Where's All Might? He should have been hero ready. He got held up. Izuku frowned at hearing that, his frown deepening further with confusion as he saw 13 hold up 3 fingers, the sight of them making Aizawa look irritated. The pro-rescue hero then turned to the students, the feeling of her smiling permeating even through her thick black mask. Hello students, as I can tell some of you are aware, I'm the pro-hero 13. Before we begin, let me just say one thing. Well, maybe 2 things. Possibly 3. Or 4. Or 5. Izuku wondered if this was a regular thing with her before she shook herself anyway. Listen carefully. I'm sure you're aware that I'm in possession of a powerful quirk known as Black Hole. With it, I can suck up anything I point my fingers at and turn it into dust. Yeah? Uraraka gushed. You've used Black Hole to save countless people from all sorts of disasters before. The bubbly brunette was damn near vibrating in place in a manner that in no way resembled himself. Nope, not at all. Yes, that's true. 13 nodded, but it could also be easily used to kill. The air became quickly serious at that. I'm sure many of you are in a similar position as well. In our superhuman society, quirks are heavily regulated and watched by both the pro-heroes and the government, which means it's not uncommon to not think about how dangerous we could really be. One slip-up, one lapse in judgment, one instance of using a bit too much power, could result in a mistake you can never take back. During Aizawa's fitness test, you likely got a good grasp of what your quirks can do. During All Might's combat training, you may have seen how volatile your power can be when used on another person. Carry those lessons learned over into my class. Here, you won't be using your power to fight, you won't be competing against one another. Here, you'll be learning how to save people's lives. As that is what being a true hero is all about, ensuring the safety of others. 13 is so cool. Uraraka gushed behind him and he couldn't disagree. That's all I have to say, thank you for listening. Their instructor gave a bow as Izuku and his classmates clapped for the speech. As the class's applause died down though, applause from further in became easier to hear. My. Looking past his teachers and into the central courtyard of the facility, Izuku saw a pale man covered in severed hands, giving slow mocking applause. That was quite the speech. 13. It was so fucking wholesome I almost choked on it. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious.